there's an $87 billion gap for loans $100,000 or less. And the reason for that is a lot of times big banks, they can do a $100 million loan, a $10 million loan just as fast as they could do a $100,000 loan. So for them, it is not necessarily profitable or feasible. Main Street businesses that need this capital, a lot of times they don't need 250,000, they don't need 500,000, they may need 100,000, 125,000, 75,000, but they don't know where to go. Essentially, we kind of found our niche in connecting these entrepreneurs with these particular financial institutions in our city. Started with 5 kids in 2017 at a church basement, and it has blossomed to serving over 3,000 young people, producing over 200 plus jobs. 2025, I'm in partnership with the family office. We bought a financial technology company called Help With My Loan that has done over $850 million in loan origination. They were looking for a loan of about $150,000, increase their revenues month over month by about 20 to 30%. Then from there, we helped them to refinance that into essentially a bank line of credit. You show people that you care. I think that's when you get the referrals. And this person actually referred me to about 2 or 3 other people. And then those people referred me to some more people. Clients and lenders do not speak the same language, and you're kind of that connector.
Today's conversation is one that I've really been looking forward to because it sits right at the intersection of what our channel is really all about, the impact of unlocking capital. And unlocking capital access is not just about getting people money, right? Capital is a tool fundamentally for business growth, for economic development, and for community transformation. And my guest today is Walter Mendenhall. And Walter is the founder of the Male Mogul Initiative and Alpha Visionary Investments. And his work throughout is rooted in a really powerful idea that when entrepreneurs gain the support they need around capital, that it does more than just grow one business. It creates jobs, it strengthens families, and it can move an entire community forward. And Walter's heart really resonates with our mission at the Institute. And we've thoroughly enjoyed the privilege of supporting him and his team throughout their launch. And Walter, it is great to have a conversation with you today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
What really happens to a business and to a community when the right entrepreneurs are finally given access to the capital they need?
For me, it's about circulation of the dollar, right? The more businesses that have access to capital, the more people that they can hire, the more people they can hire, the more employees that could take care of their families, the more they invest in their community and cross-pollinate with other businesses. And it essentially creates a sustainable economy. And that is what we're trying to do at Alpha Visionary Investments at the Male Mogul Initiative, is to create entrepreneurial ecosystems that circulate the dollars within communities and provide jobs, access, and sustainability.
And you really have that perspective of it being an ecosystem that, similar to the ecosystems with plants and animals and the such, everything has a role that benefits other parties within that same ecosystem. And it seems like you have that same perspective, that same lens when it comes to the economics of a region.
Yes, 100%. I think economics is the heartbeat of a community, of, life. You need money, you need resources in order to live, in order to sustain. It's kind of like, the heart in the body. If you don't have if your heart's not beating, then everything falls off, it dies. So
You've had a unique path getting to this perspective, right? So you've played in the NFL, then you went and you got your doctorate, and now you're speaking, you're training on leadership, and you're also supporting entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs through your own finance company, Alpha Visionary Investments. And throughout this whole journey that you've been on, what has really shaped that underlying philosophy of yours?
Man, that is great. So it actually goes back to my childhood. So I grew up in Chicago. Chicago is the most segregated city, probably one of the most segregated cities in America. And one thing a person doesn't do usually in Chicago is move from the south side to the north side. And essentially it's a, different culture, different everything. And I was actually, one of the people that were able to go from the South Side to the North Side, be around different cultures. And I actually grew up in an immigrant neighborhood. And what I saw in that neighborhood was that poverty is not necessarily how much money you have, it's a mindset. When I saw in that building that I lived in was people working together in a circular economy. I saw it through their ethnicities. I lived in a building with Haitians, Africans, Indians, Russians. They all worked together in their little ecosystems, and they were able 2 to 3 years to move into a house and live that American dream per se. And I wanted to kind of take that mentality, that ecosystem, that working together, that collective economics, and bring it back to where I was originally from, which is the South Side of Chicago. And through my academic studies, through my PhD, discovering sustainable and prosperous entrepreneurial ecosystems in African American neighborhoods in Chicago. And even on the South Side, we had that in the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s, but with integration and some systematic things that had happened in the city of Chicago, that was, no longer the case. And my goal is to rebuild that through sustainable entrepreneurial ecosystems.
What age were you when you made that transition South Side into that community?
I've always dabbled in both. So we officially moved when I was 8 years old, but all my family lived on the South Side of Chicago. So I was constantly there. So I was always in two worlds that never really saw each other. So it was a dichotomy. I grew up in dichotomy, just seeing two different sides of life. And, not to say that everything on the South Side is bad. It's a lot of great things that I learned, there, a lot of family, a lot of cultural things. But I was just in two places that I never really fit into either of them. And I realized it was for such a time as this, where I could come and build sustainability and ecosystems and taking the best of both worlds, making my community and my city better.
In 8 years, that's a young age to be having these deep thoughts. Was there anything that you remember from that period, of growing up that was really a stark contrast that you either couldn't wrap your head around, or that was just such a stark contrast that was a real aha experience?
I never really fit in throughout really my whole life. I always felt like an outsider and somebody who thought differently, somebody who um, really had kind of wisdom beyond their years and just seen things differently from the average person my age. And I understand that the work that I do, you have to kind of stand alone. You got to kind of figure it out. You got to go against the grain. You have to be innovative, and you got to be willing to take criticism and in order to advance. So I just think for myself, never really feeling like I belong to a crowd, um, was really kind of, I realized that, I was different, and it was, God had something different for me.
Before we dig into how this translates into the financial space, I think it will help listeners if they first understand what your mission is at Male Mogul Initiative. And this is
Yes.
a nonprofit organization. You founded it, and it provides leadership development for Black and Brown young men throughout Chicago. And what really has made entrepreneurship such a central part of your mission and your approach to development?
100%. So the Male Mogul Initiative seeks to positively transform the way young men live and lead in their communities through leadership, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. It started actually in 2016 after a conversation I had with a young man at a career day. Great young man, honor roll student, basketball player, very well respected in his school, but he sold drugs to get the things that he wanted. And after that conversation, I thought to myself, how many young men in this city and around the nation have the gifts, skills, and talents to be successful legal entrepreneurs, but don't have the exposure or the opportunity. So the Male Mogul actually started with 5 kids in 2017 at a church. basement, and it has blossomed to serving over 3,000 young people, producing over 200 plus jobs. In 2022, we were Chicago Innovation Award and Wintrust Bank Neighborhood Award winner. In 2023, we were MIT Solve semifinalists. And in 2024, we opened up Chicago's first small business incubator for youth and young adults called CoLab. It's a place where film, arts, and enterprise meets. We feel the most valuable currency in communities of color is creativity. And CoLab is a place where you can come and learn how to monetize that creativity. And in 2025, in partnership with the family office, we bought a financial technology company called Help With My Loan that has done over 850 million in loan origination. So we're teaching young people how to become commercial and business loan brokers. And that's essentially how, I met Shane and how we met, looking for further training to help develop our young brokers. And the Male Mogul really just seeks to solve three problems that I feel keep Chicago from being the ideal place to live, to learn, and to work. And those three problems are essentially, the first one is 45% of African American young men ages 18 to 24 in the city of Chicago are not in school or working. The second one, 80% of capital needs for Black and brown entrepreneurs go unmet, which is a $146 million annual gap. And the third one is 80% of gunshot victims are African American. So our solution to that is our Male Mogul community wealth building ecosystem, which consists of business incubation and acquisition, finance, direct services, which is our asset management training and all our other programming, indirect services, which is our mentorship network and internship network. And the byproduct of that being community redevelopment, which is essentially job creation and ownership of real estate property from people in our program. So essentially circulating those dollars, having a proven solution to this problem that we're trying to solve, and solving it on multiple layers.
And why did you choose to invest in capital brokering? Right? There's many different components that you're doing there. There's many different avenues that you are taking to make an impact. And yet you've invested significantly in helping to source capital, which illustrates, as a thoughtful man, that you see that as really being a nexus at the center of many of these different components. Why is it so influential?
I think sometimes a lot of people think it's because of race and, where you live, why you're not being able to access capital. But I think the biggest component is education. We don't know what is out there. We don't know how to access it. We don't know what lenders look for. We don't know what banks look for. So investing in this loan brokerage, I am teaching young people what it takes to access capital, and then they can take it to their communities, to their families, and begin to educate. And what I see this as is education with the byproduct of money and resources, because you gain relationships. And also, if you do broker a deal, you get money, but that is a byproduct of impact and value that you bring to people.
And what are some of the ways that you've seen that play out? How does that work after the capital goes into the hand of an entrepreneur? What happens next that has an impact at all on the community in the way that you want?
What I see is significant growth. So first, what I see a lot of times, the working capital, a lot of entrepreneurs are looking to bring on people. They're looking to buy equipment, and they're looking to produce more revenue. So the access to capital is essentially helping them to produce more capital, to bring on more people, to employ more people in order to make more money. So I just see it. And then that money is essentially a lot of times reinvested into other things and other businesses, particularly in their peer networks and in their communities. And what I see is just kind of like this triple effect of employment, asset acquisition, increase in net worth, and ultimately sustainability within communities.
Let's talk then a bit about what you see day to day at Alpha Visionary Investments. So, as you said, fundamentally, your firm helps entrepreneurs access the capital they need to grow, right? And those could be mom and pop local businesses throughout the communities, or they could be larger corporations, or it could be real estate investors and developers. Why is it that these entrepreneurs that you serve, why do they need your firm's help?
Yes, this is a great question. So, what we discovered as we were studying and preparing and trying to find our particular niche in this such wide arena of commercial and business loan brokering. What is it that we can do that nobody else is doing and that we can kind of take over? And what we realized was that there was a foundational problem, particularly in my research studies. I saw that there's an $87 billion gap for loans, $100,000 or less. And the reason for that is a lot of times big banks, they can do $100 million loan, a $10 million loan just as fast as they can do $100,000 loan. So for them, it is not necessarily, profitable or feasible. But there are credit unions, CDFI, small community banks, other financial institutions that would love to deploy capital in those amounts, but nobody knows who they are. And essentially, we have, our Main Street businesses that need this capital. A lot of times they don't need 250,000. They don't need, 500,000. They may need 100,000, 125,000, 75,000, but they don't know where to go. And essentially, we kind of found our niche in connecting these entrepreneurs with these particular financial institutions in our city. And that has proven for us to be very, very impactful, profitable. And, we found essentially our niche. We are going to continue to grow outside of that. But I felt the struggle that we had was just kind of finding who we were and our identities. And what I really wanted to do with Alpha Visionary Investments is find our identity and then from there grow.
I think that's a really interesting conceptual framework that you've put down. That's exactly what we teach at the Institute, that the process of brokering capital, of capital placement with entrepreneurs and investors is essentially helping that capital, that cash, that money to go from where it is less productive to where it is more productive, right? Sitting in that bank's account, it makes some extra money. It does a push up once a day, but it's not producing anywhere near its capacity as a tool.
Yes.
And what you're doing when you're getting that out of the bank's account into the account of an entrepreneur is you're giving that tool to somebody who has the skill and the drive to go ahead and make that cash more useful. Right? It's like giving a hammer and a pile of wood and nails to me versus to a master carpenter. The
100%.
same tools, completely different result. And when you do that, the money as a tool becomes more productive. It makes more money through the hands of those using it. And that money then enriches everyone. It enriches the lender because they get paid back their money plus interest they wouldn't have if they didn't lend it out. It enriches the lender, but it also enriches the entrepreneur. And it enriches all of their employees and their employees' families, and then the spending throughout the community that creates that virtuous cycle, that heartbeat pumping blood through the ecosystem. So when you're working with someone who has the willingness and the drive to take that capital and activate its potential and really make it produce, that doesn't mean that they can easily access the capital, right? Just because they want the capital, they have a vision for it, doesn't mean that they can get it. And that's why they're coming to you. That's why they're coming to Alpha Visionary Investments. When someone is not capital ready, what are the most common gaps that you have to fill in for them to help them get to the point where they actually can get the capital and make it active?
Number one thing is financial structure. A lot of times They do not have their bookkeeping in a way that is lender worthy. Somebody can look at their books and say, okay, this person is worthy of capital, because a lot of times their books are in a mess, you know, and essentially you have to help them to reconstruct those books, help them to, really learn. I think a lot of times a lot of businesses are in their business, but not on their business. So especially as a solo entrepreneur or a small business owner or a main street, which I call kind of like a, typical store, flower shop. That's what I call main street businesses, because they're on main streets. Restaurants, small restaurants. A lot of times they're in their business. They're working hard. They're passionate. They're making money, but they don't work on their business. So that is their financial structure, their organizational structure, understanding, the financials, what is the profit loss, what is the cash flow, and really understanding those things and reading into those things and, getting it to a point where it is bankable or lender worthy. That is essentially the biggest problem. And a lot of times they don't realize that it is a problem until they come to us.
It sounds like you're really using your knowledge of the market and the mechanics behind lending to enable them to understand the same thing. Right? You're taking your knowledge of the market and the mechanics of lending, and you're teaching them how it becomes immediately relevant to the success of their business.
Yes. So we're not a typical kind of, brokering firm. I would even say we're more of a capital consulting in the sense of that we're helping people to guide them through, what is out there, what they can access, how they can access it, and what is needed for them to access this capital, and holding them accountable. So essentially, we are consultants, we are teachers, we are facilitators in helping them to facilitate that, and we're helping them to plan for the future with that capital. A lot of times they need a bridge. That something happened, whatever, help them to get quick capital. Then we help them to restructure and kind of figure out, okay, what is it that's needed in order to get it to a point where you can refinance out of this maybe higher interest loan if you do decide to go that route. So we're really there from the step of the way to help them, to educate them first, and to secondly get them the capital that they need, and then to help them to be better in the future.
And that's a key part of your model at Alpha. Bridge, then restore, then refinance. So walk me through how you are working with a business owner over time with regards to funding and economic growth.
Like I said, the bridge, a lot of times people need capital immediately. Sometimes we cannot offer that. Sometimes we don't advise that is the solve. Sometimes there are a lot of just leaks that if you can plug in those leaks. So essentially we're not, and I hate to say this because we're not profit driven. We're impact driven. We still love profit, but impact, and we're going to tell you what you need to do as opposed to what benefits us. So we're looking at your best interest before we look at our best interests. And I think that is key to long-term relationships and to trust. So we try to get people to trust us. Then from there, we give them a tangible plan in order to restore those leaks. So that is essentially accountability. That is a plan that we come with together, and then accountability to hold them to that plan. And once, they complete those goals, we can then go to some bankable institutions and help them to refinance any of their high interest loans, and also get them to access more capital at a lower interest rate.
So let's make this real with kind of a tangible example. What's a real world situation in which someone looked unfinanceable, or they thought, maybe they were unfinanceable. They didn't know how to unlock the capital, but then they became fundable with the right strategy. What was the story and how did you help them?
We actually had a consulting firm. It was actually out of California. They were making great money. They were trying to bring on some people, but due to certain circumstances. They had some kind of cash shortfalls, and essentially, they were looking for about $150,000. After kind of, you know, assessing their situation, we kind of realized that, hey, you may want to get lean, really figure out what is it before you access this capital? What can you do to lower costs so this capital could be more impactful? So we figured out a couple ways in which we can do that. We helped them into a alternative kind of line of credit with a non-bank, a little bit higher interest rates, but it was help them to actually acquire the person that they really needed in order to get that going. And they were able to, I guess, increase their revenues month over month by about 20 to 30%. And then from there, we helped them to refinance that into essentially a bank line of credit.
And tell me about the relationship part of this. What's the role of the personal relationships throughout this whole lending process that you're walking through with them and other clients?
Yes, I think when you help people, when essentially it doesn't necessarily benefit you and you show people that you care, I think that's when you get the referrals. And this person actually referred me to about two or three other people. And then those people referred me to some more people. And that it has essentially, kind of created an ecosystem, particularly for us. And I just think when you treat people right, it comes back to you in ways that you wouldn't have thought.
And that's a really nice thing about our industry and space, that the only way you make money is by helping others, right? That if you're going out and you're not getting the entrepreneur the funding they need, then you're not earning your success fee along the way and you're not making anything. So the entire business model necessitates looking to benefit others. But you take it a step farther and really put it at the core of everything that you do. Not only is this consistent with who you are as a person, Walter, and your larger life mission, but I would wager that it's probably accelerated your success in the financing space, because business funding is so much relationship driven. And this becomes true at the smaller end of loan amounts, because you have to invest in helping that entrepreneur to take the next step and the next step and the next step, and then it snowballs. It's also true at the higher end of loan amounts, where it's much more, who do you know that can help you out? Who should you talk to? Oh, I know somebody who can source the capital. But it's really at the heart of everything you're doing, helping others and developing those relationships.
Yes. And I think that's one thing I didn't know until I kind of started getting into this and learning, is that this is very relationship driven business. And when you treat people right, you treat lenders right, you treat your customer or your sponsor right, the thing comes back to you, and it comes back to you multiplied, and a lot of times two or three fold on, what you originally did. And it's not for the weak, but if you really have people's best interest in mind, I think long term, you will fare great in this business.
And you've said it's a relationship business, but you've also time and again mentioned education. So what is the impact of education on clients as well as your team and yourself? It seems at the heart of your philosophy as well.
Education breeds trust. So if people know, I think a lot of times, and I've seen where, we were able to get people access to capital, but because of fear of not knowing what this essentially entails, what this means, they kind of backed out at the last minute. And that fear is a lot of times attributed to a lack of understanding, which is attributed to a lack of education. And one of the things that I've realized, especially in the niche market, that we are going after education is the key.
And for someone who's listening who really wants to serve entrepreneurs better, and they're thinking of becoming a capital broker, what skills or knowledge do you see as essential to develop first?
I think for me, it's relationship. This person is not a transaction. This is a person that has feelings and good stuff and bad stuff happen in our lives just as you, and to treat that person the way you would want to be treated. Uh, and if you do that with then educating this person, letting you know what they're doing, contacting, understanding the pros and the cons to every decision and option, those things breed trust. And when you have trust and the deal goes through, that trust then brings referrals. That trust brings, other lenders, and that trust actually grows your business. So this is a trust business, and the more trust that you have, the better you can grow your business between consumers and lenders.
Our website, we actually have a personality quiz for folks who are looking to jump into commercial loan brokering. And one of the 5 factors that we're targeting with the questions there is, do you truly care about the best interest of others? Because everything you've said is spot on, and it accelerates the growth of a brokerage, right? If you are helping others, you get more referrals. You mentioned that one loan gave you 2 more loan opportunities that you did. And it just snowballs, but only if you're truly helping others.
And that is essentially sometimes to the tough part, because it takes longer. You can go fast and you can just try to do the transaction, be transactional. And yes, you would maybe make more money in the short term, but it would not pan out in the long term.
What is one thing that you want the capital broker who's listening right now to understand about their job and the people that they're trying to help?
Understand that the things that we do, the profession that we in, can be very complicated or hard to understand for the people that we're servicing. And the further education, the more you can take these complicated concepts and make it simple and explain these things, the pros and the cons, to all the options to our sponsors and clients, the more trust you build and the more successful you will be in the long term.
For the entrepreneurs, the business owners who are listening and are thinking, well, it would be great to have that capital injection. It would just unlock my growth if I could unlock capital. But uh, I don't know how to do it. If they could have one key takeaway that would move them ahead, what would that be?
Have a plan for your capital. A lot of people say, I need 100,000, or they don't know why they need 100,000. A lot of people say they need 500,000, but they don't know why. There's not a concrete plan for the capital. And I think a lot of times, a lot of entrepreneurs get capital. They don't have a plan for it, and then they just use it haphazardly, and that puts them in a pickle. So my advice would essentially be, have a concrete plan for your capital that you're looking to acquire.
And having that concrete plan enables you, as their consultant, to structure the narrative around the loan. Right? Explain what the financing is going to do, why there's a reason to believe they will be successful in producing more than enough money to pay back the lender. And if they don't have that clarity, you can't construct the narrative, and then you can't pitch the loan as effectively.
And I think what they don't understand too, especially particularly the client, is that we are essentially pitching, that's another thing that when I got into this, I didn't know. I thought it was straight numbers and things of that sort, but no, you're actually creating a story that you're presenting to a particular lender in order to get your sponsor or client financed.
Really what you're doing is understanding how lenders think, and you're then taking that and teaching the entrepreneur how they think so that they can come together, bridge the gap, and speak a common language.
100%, 100%. Because essentially
clients and lenders do not speak the same language. And you're kind of that connector.
Walter, thank you so much. This was really powerful. And what stands out from all of this for me is that brokering capital is not just about money changing hands from one party to another, right? It's about whether the people who have the potential to activate the power of the money, who have a vision, if they can get the funds that they need to make their dreams real. And when that happens, unlocking capital for them strengthens their business, it creates jobs, it supports their families, and it raises up the entire community, which is a key part of your mission and everything you're doing in life. And the type of work you're doing is exactly why we at the Institute care so much about smart capital access, because financing strengthens communities and it also strengthens America as a whole. So I really appreciate all the work you are doing at Alpha Visionary Investments and throughout all your other endeavors. And thank you for that. And thank you for coming on and having a conversation.
Thank you, Shane, for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
So that's it, everyone. Get out there, give big to the entrepreneurs and communities you're serving, and let's make this world a better place together.